This conference will now be recorded.
100 about.
ఎంతమంది వచ్చారు? ఎక్కడుందమ్మా ఇది? ఇదేనా? ఎక్స్పాండ్ 103. ఓకే. ఇక్కడే ఉంటారు కదా ప్రాబ్లం వస్తే. ఓకే, ఒక్క నిమిషం వీళ్ళతో మాట్లాడాలంటే ఎలాగిది? వాళ్ళు వాయిస్ నాకు వినిపిస్తున్నాయి కదా. ఓకే, ఎవరు? పవన్ కళ్యాణ్. ఓకే, గుడ్ ఆఫ్టర్నూన్ టు ఆల్ ఆఫ్ యూ. Today I'm going to talk about gestation trophoblastic diseases. So coming to gestation trophoblastic diseases, it is nothing but heterogeneous group of interrelated lesions that arise from abnormal proliferation of placental trophoblast. So you know what is there in the placenta? Trophoblast. So what type of trophoblast? Both syncytial and cytotrophoblast. So there is proliferation, abnormal proliferation of the placental trophoblast. Okay, so you should know about two entities. What is gestation trophoblastic neoplasm? What is gestation trophoblastic disease? So what diseases come under gestation trophoblastic diseases? So you can divide them into herediform mole, that is molar pregnancy, and non-molar malignant neoplasms. So in case of herediform mole, you can see there is the villus structure is preserved in case of herediform mole. In case of non-molar malignant neoplasm, those include choriocarcinoma, placental cell tumor. So these three tumors are under non-molar malignant neoplasm. And in herediform mole, there are two types. That is complete mole and partial mole. That is, which is a benign type, and malignant type is an invasive mole. Invasive mole is also known as choriocarcinoma destruens. So here it is locally invasive. Invasive mole, it is locally invasive. So you should know about two entities. What is local invasion and what is metastasis? So local invasion is nothing but the tumor spreads to the adjacent organs by direct spread. That is local invasion. What is metastasis? Metastasis is nothing but the tumor spreads to distant organs by blood spread or lymphatic spread. That is called metastasis. So all these type of tumor spreads through. So these choriocarcinoma, placental cell trophoblastic tumor, epidural trophoblastic tumor, they all spread through direct spread, that is local invasive, and also metastatic spread. So both types of spread are present, and depending upon the type of the tumor, the propensity to which they do varies, right? So now we'll discuss about herediform mole. Okay, here there is nothing but trophoblastic proliferation. Both syncytial and cytotrophoblast, they both proliferate abnormally, and the villi will have a stromal edema. So why there is stromal edema? What happens? The villus structure is maintained, the blood supply is not there. So the blood, but the vascularity is not there. So what happened? There is, so what happens? The tissue will secrete fluid that will form villus, that is hydropic swelling. They form like hydropic swelling. The villi will form a swelling like vesicles, and they present to as grape-like vesicles. So they're called as grape-like vesicles. So based upon histopathology, morphology, and karyotyping, this herediform mole can be divided into complete and partial mole. So you have to, so whenever the patient comes, usually the patient comes to you with bleeding PV with some period of amenorrhea. Next, you have to diagnose it as missed abortion or with history. So depending upon some criteria, you can differentiate between complete and partial mole. So I'll just tell you. So you can see, first we'll discuss about the so you can see the differences here. So what is partial mole and what is complete mole? So in partial mole, you can see the karyotype. It has 69 chromosome with XXX pattern or 69 chromosome with XXY pattern. In complete mode, the chromosomes will be 46 with XX pattern. Right. So why this pattern? So because in partial mode, there is a fetal tissue. So fetal tissue is present in case of partial mole. Fetal tissue is absent in case of complete mole. So how this complete mole comes? So complete mole, what happened? You can see here. Just a minute. So here you can see this is what? This is an ovum where there is no nucleus and that is empty ovum. So when an empty ovum get fertilized with a haploid sperm, so this 23X, this is nothing but a haploid sperm. So an empty ovum gets fertilized with haploid sperm, it forms 46 XX chromosome. So 46 chromosome in XX pattern. So this will undergo duplication to form 46 XX and 46 XX. So this is the chromosomal pattern in case of a complete mole. In case of a complete mole, and you can see here in case of a partial mole, what happens? So the chromosomes are purely derived from the maternal in origin, so not paternal. So this is maternal. So there can be a question. So from which it is maternal or paternal in origin? In case of complete mole, in case of a paternal in origin. Okay, PATER. This is paternal in origin. Stop the music here. So here in case of a complete mole, here it is fertilized by two haploids from 23Y and 23X. So it forms diandry and it is triplet. Okay, so this is the pathogenesis. And you can see in the picture what is that? There's a grape-like vesicles. So the villi, the chorionic villi will get enlarged because of all the secretion, because of all the trophoblastic will undergo hyperplasia and hypertrophy. They secrete fluid and the villus will get enlarged, form transparent vesicles, and there'll be a variable So there is no normal placental tissue in case of a complete mole. So you will not find any form of placenta or any form of fetus. So embryo fetus is absent in case of a complete mole. So you can ఒకసారి swelling of the villus stroma, and there are no blood vessels. The absence of structural point in case of a complete. అందరినీ మ్యూట్ పెట్టేసావా? So there is absence of villus structure in case of a complete mole. There is proliferation of both trophoblastic epithelia. Vesicles are irregular, proliferating, pleomorphism of epithelium, and hyperchromatic and mitotic nucleus. So there is proliferation of the cytotrophoblast, epithelium, syncytia, and cytotrophoblastic proliferation. The villus blood vessels are absent. Okay, these are the two things you have to remember. And in case of partial mole, you can see there is a fetus or embryo is present in case of a partial mole. Okay, and this can present to you in case of like IUGR, okay, missed abortion. So these are things where a partial mole can present to you. So first we'll discuss about the differences between partial and complete mole. I told you the karyotypic. It is triploid in case of partial mole, in case of 46XS in case of complete mole. Usually you will diagnose partial mole as missed abortion. So they come with the symptoms of a missed abortion. Okay, and if you see the uterine size, it is large for days in case of a complete mole. It is small for age in case of a days in case of a partial mole. Why? Because in case it is like missed abortion. Here, why it is large? Because there is exuberant growth of the trophoblast, which will secrete more amount of HCG, and there is, okay, the abdomen will be more than her gestational age. And in case of complete mole, you will have thecal uterine cyst. So thecal uterine cyst are very rare in case of a partial mole. Because why? Thecal uterine cyst is because of HCG. HCG stimulation. Because of HCG stimulation, there will be thecal uterine cyst. In case of complete mole, there will be more amount of HCG. That is why you find thecal uterine cyst in almost in case of usually up to 50% cases you find thecal uterine cyst. So if you take a HCG value, usually it is greater than 1 lakh in case of a complete mole. It is less than 1 lakh in case of a partial mole. The medical complication. So the medical complication, all these are medical complications which are more in case of a, usually in case of a complete mole, very rare in case of a partial mole. And the rate of subsequent GTN. So what does that mean? Suppose when you, so what is the treatment of a mole? You just do a suction curettage. So when you do a suction curettage, about 50 to 20% of these cases will go into a persistent GTN, that is gestational trophoblastic neoplasia. There is residual tissue or the recurrence of the disease. But when you do a dilatation and curettage for a, if you do a curettage in case of a partial mole, only 1 to 5% of the cases will go into a persistent gestational trophoblastic disease, right? So now how do a patient present to you? That is important. Yeah, this is also important, very important. So what happens in case of partial mole, there is embryo fetus is usually present. Usually it is absent in case of a complete mole, right? Vascularity, so in both cases the villus structure will be maintained. The villus structure is there, but in case of complete mole, the vascularity, the blood vascularity is absent in case of complete mole, where it is present in case of a partial mole. And in these 2 points, so there are 2 characteristic features of a complete mole. That is the trophoblastic proliferation. The trophoblastic proliferation and the hydropic villus edema. So these two will be present in case of a complete mole. That is entire, or there is widespread proliferation of the trophoblast in case of a complete mole, whereas in a partial mole there is only focal. Here and there you can see trophoblastic proliferation, and there is villus edema, that is hydropic villus edema, that is diffuse villus edema will be there in case of a complete mole, whereas here and there you can find villus edema, that is a focal, that is in case of a partial mole. So these 2 characteristic features, that is a villus edema and trophoblastic proliferation, is diffuse and widespread in case of complete mole. And the other two characteristic features in case of partial mole is trophoblastic inclusion bodies will be there in case of a partial mole. Okay, and there is scalloping of the chorionic villi. So the scalloping of the chorionic villi and the trophoblastic inclusion bodies will be present in the case of partial mole, but they're absent in case of a complete mole. And what is this P57 immunohistostaining? That is nothing but the IHC marker, that is immunohistochemistry marker for P57 tumor marker. So if you do that, because in the first trimester, usually it is very difficult to diagnose between the complete mole and case of a pregnancy. So to differentiate between a complete mole, you have to do a IHC marker, that is immunohistochemistry marker for tumor marker P57. So in all cases of pregnancies, like inevitable abortion, missed abortion, ectopic, or in a partial mole, your IHC marker is positive. Okay, but it will be negative in case of complete. So like that, you can suppose if you're having doubt whether it is a complete or partial mole, you can do an eye immunohistochemistry mark P50%. It is negative in case of a complete mole. Okay. So how the patient presents? So usually how the patient is presented to you in case of a complete mole. So usually there are two types of presentation. Either the patient is having bleeding and comes to you in the process of abortion, or because due to early diagnosis can occur because of your ultrasound. So you ask her to get a scan done, routine scan done because she is amenorrhea for some weeks. Then in the scan you diagnose as hybridiform mole. So what is the most common presentation that a patient comes to you? So if I give you 4 options like discharge per vaginum, bleeding vaginum, lower ped abdomen. So what is the answer? The most common presentation in case of hybridiform mole is vaginal bleeding. So 90% of the cases come with vaginal bleeding. It is the most common symptom. So why there is vaginal bleeding here? Because I told you there is trophoblastic proliferation and hyperplasia of this syncytia and cytotrophoblast. So whenever they get separated, so when these trophoblasts get separated from the decidia, what happens? There is accumulation of clots. So there is accumulation of clots, and these clots, what happen? They undergo oxidation and peroxidation to form a necrosis. They necrose and they what happened? They all this will come out to the vagina, and sometimes it is called as prune juice. So it is called as a prune juice type of vaginal bleeding, and it is also described as white current in black current. Okay, okay, white current in hybridiform mole. So the most common presentation is hybridiform mole. And next, when you examine the patient, you will find the uterine size is greater than the period of gestation. So the uterine size is greater than period of gestation. And sometimes the patient almost sometimes the patient presents with hyperemesis gravidarum, so nausea and vomiting are prominent due to high levels of HCG. Because there is human chorionic gonadotrophin is of high levels, the patient comes with hyperemesis gravidarum and they present with sometimes electrolyte disturbances. Okay, and sometimes the patient presents with non-specific symptoms. So suddenly the patient comes and tells you that she's having palpitations. Okay, she's having palpitations and tremor. Okay, she comes and tell you, and she's having palpitations, and when you examine the patient you find warm skin, tremor and tachycardia. So what is your diagnosis? The patient is having hypothyroidism features. So the patient is having hyper. So sometimes the patient presents to you with hypothyroidism features, and if the patient presents to you with thyroid storm, she will have hyponatremia, delirium, convulsions, tachycardia, high output heart failure and cardiovascular collapse. So what is other thing that patient can present? Thyroid storm. Suppose if you are doing a curettage for a hybridiform mole without knowing the status of your thyroid, then what happens? So in the process of recovery after your dilatation and curettage, the patient can go into thyroid storm, which is very dangerous. And what is the treatment? What is the treatment? You have, suppose if you diagnose it as a complete mole, so before you do evacuation, you have to start on beta adrenergic blocking agents. So these beta adrenergic blocking agents will help you to avoid this thyroid storm during your evacuation. Okay, suppose a patient is thyroid storm, prevent the cardiovascular complications of the thyroid storm. Okay. Next, what is other presentation? So hyperthyroidism. Next is the preeclampsia. That is toxemia. What is toxemia features? That is she's having hypertension. So hypertension and proteinuria. So usually these preeclampsia, they can present in that way also. Okay. And what are the other features a patient can present is trophoblastic embolization. So trophoblastic embolization is very rare, 2%. So 2%. Usually the uterine size is more than the period of gestation is almost in about 50% of the cases, and with thecal uterine cyst is also in about 50% of the cases the patient present to you. So these are in case of a complete mole. Why the thecal lutein ovarian cyst with present in the case of herediform mole? Because of the increased levels of beta HCG, there is ovarian stimulation, and usually without doing anything. So there is usually you don't touch thecal lutein cyst, just you try to evacuate the herediform mole, automatically the thecal lutein cyst will regress. So in 2 to 4 months after molar evacuation, that is regression of the thecal lutein cyst. So sometimes what happens is the patient she'll be very discomfort because of it can grow as much as 6 centimeters. If the patient have discomfort, you can do an aspiration of thecal lutein cyst, but never do a laparotomy. Usually we don't do a laparotomy or do not do an oophorectomy or an ovarionotomy for thecal lutein cyst. Okay. And next, very rare, in about 2% of patients, there is trophoblastic embolization. So trophoblastic embolization is when you are curating, what happens is usually these trophoblastic tissue go into the pulmonary circulation. They cause chest pain, dyspnea, tachycardia, severe respiratory distress. So on auscultation, you will find bilateral diffuse rales, and in chest X you get pulmonary infiltrates. So the treatment is nothing but conservative management with good cardiovascular support. So usually in 70% of the cases, there is good cardiovascular support, the patient will recover. So trophoblastic embolization 2% of the cases, thecal lutein cyst in about 50% of the cases. Okay, and next features of hyperthyroidism you have to examine, and features of toxemia of pregnancy, that is the preeclampsia. Okay, and hyperemesis gravidae. So these are the now you tell me what are the symptoms the patient can present with. Most common symptom is vaginal bleeding. Extra uterine size is more than the period of gestation, that is in about 50% of the cases, and thecal lutein cyst is also 50% of the cases, and hyperemesis gravidarum and hyperthyroidism features. So these both in case 25% of the case, in preeclampsia it is 7% in. Now how do you diagnose? So when you know after examining the patient, you doubt that she is having a molar pregnancy. So what is the diagnosis? The most important investigation, and for the follow-up also, the single most important marker you have to see. So serum beta HCG measurements. So HCG levels will be elevated above the expected for normal gestation age, and P57 expression. So I told you in P57 is nothing but immunohistochemistry marker for the tumor marker P57. It is increased in case of normal pregnancy, partial mole, and any inevitable abortion, missed abortion, and in case of ectopic also your P57 will be elevated. So P57 will be negative in case of a complete mole. So that is how you differentiate between a complete and a partial mole. So you can see ultrasound. So typically this is nothing but a snowstorm appearance. So this is a case of the first diagram is nothing but it is a case of a complete mole. It is nothing but snowstorm appearance. Typically called as a snowstorm appearance. And here in the second diagram you can see this is nothing but some part of fetal tissue is there, and here this is the placenta. Okay, so this is multicystic placenta along with the fetal tissue. So that is there is no fetal heart seen, and there is increase in transverse diameter of the gestation sac. So these are characteristic features of a partial mole. So differences I have finished. Only that what are the things that come under gestation trophoblastic disease. So these are the comes invasive mole, gestation choriocarcinoma, placenta-side trophoblastic tumor, epididymal trophoblastic tumor. So how do you diagnose? Criteria for diagnosing gestation trophoblastic neoplasia. So now I want to ask you why you want to measure serum beta HCG levels. Why not alpha? Why you want to measure beta HCG levels? So because what happens is the alpha chains, that is alpha chains of if you measure alpha chains, you will also measure the alpha chains of LH. So that will give a false value. That is why you measure beta HCG. So beta HCG is the single most important marker for molar pregnancy. So after diagnosis, So what are the other investigations you want to do? So you examine. So when the patient comes to you, you examine the patient. Then you have done a beta HCG level. You have done a scan. You came to a diagnosis of iridiform mole. Now what you want to do to the patient? So before the only treatment for iridiform mole, you have to evacuate by suction evacuation. So before doing that, you have to do some basic investigations so that it is done under general anesthesia. Okay, so you have to do a complete blood count, blood grouping in RH typing, thyroid profile. Thyroid profile is very important because without knowing the status of thyroid profile, if you do dilatation and curettage, if you do suction and suction evacuation. So it is called, it is not dilatation curettage in case of iridiform mole, it is suction evacuation. So if you do a suction evacuation without knowing the status of thyroid profile, the patient can land up in a thyroid storm, which is very dangerous. Okay. Then you have to do serum electrolytes to assess fluid imbalance, because if the patient comes with the hyperemesis without first you have to correct her electrolyte abnormalities. Then chest X-ray. So chest X-ray is important, liver function test, and serum beta. So basic serum beta HCG. So basic value is important. Why? Because after your suction evacuation, you have to follow up the patient with serum beta HCG level depending upon the baseline value. So ultrasound, there is no drop opinion. So you came to a diagnosis, you have done a pre-anesthetic checkup, so you pose the patient for suction evacuation. So how do you do? So these are finished. Then okay. So this is important because you have to assess, you have to note her blood pressure, whether she's having hypertension or not. I told you thyroid finished, electrolyte, serum electrolytes because of hyperemesis, and anemia because sometimes the patient presents with bouts of bleeding. Sometimes the patient presents with spotting for so many days, on and off spotting. So these are the patient can present you in many ways. So if she's having bleeding for so many days, so she'll have anemia. So you have to correct anemia and then post the patient. So these are all the minimum things you have to do before doing the suction evacuation. So it is a preferred method, regardless of uterine size. You have to do a suction evacuation because who desire to preserve fertility. So because this is only, it is one of the rare human malignancies. Even in case of stage 3 and stage 4 metastasis, you can have full remission. So this is only malignancies where even in case of distant metastasis, almost 80% of the patients get cured because of your suction curettage and chemotherapy. So what are the steps involved? First, oxytocin infusion. So even before induction of anesthesia, you can give oxytocin to the patient. Okay. Next is the cervical dilatation. So cervical dilatation is very important because after giving you start oxytocin drip and then induction of anesthesia and then you do a dilatation. So when you're doing a cervical dilatation, there is bleeding, but you should not get panic because bleeding will be there, because when you start dilating, what happens? All the vesicles get separated from the desvia and there is start of bleeding. So then you do a suction curettage. So usually 12 mm cannula is used. So this is, you can see this in the diagram. This is a cannula suction. Usually 12 mm cannula is used and you connect it to a suction. Then you introduce this cannula after dilatation of the cervix and just don't go up to the fundus. You can see in the diagram, this is a suction cannula which has been introduced. Don't go up to the fundus, just above the internal os, and you start putting pressure and then you start suction evacuation. So you try to evacuate all the products under ultrasonic guidance. So ultrasonic guidance is very important nowadays because it is very important you know whether you are curating whole of the uterus without perforating the uterus. That is why you should do under ultrasonic guidance. Okay. Next step is sharp curettage. So sharp curettage is one step. It is depending upon the surgeon. It is the surgeon's choice whether to do a sharp curettage. So sharp curettage is nothing but after you have done a suction evacuation to any remaining tissues there in the uterus, you can just sharply curate and remove. But what happens is there is a chance of perforation if you do a sharp curettage. But nowadays, because the suction evacuation is done under proper ultrasonic guidance, you will know whether the whole tissue is removed and no need of sharp curettage nowadays. So it depends upon the surgeon choice whether you want to do a sharp curettage or not. So this is how you do a suction evacuation for a case of a iridiform mole. Okay. Next, hysterectomy. Hysterectomy is very rare because usually molar pregnancy will respond to your suction evacuation, and sometimes in high risk cases you give a chemo, then full remission is there. So why you want to do hysterectomy? But you can do hysterectomy in some cases. You have to tell the patient that even if you do hysterectomy, it will not prevent metastasis. So you have to have a follow-up with beta HCG. So when you have done a suction curettage or you have done hysterectomy, the follow-up is same. You have to follow up with a beta HCG to diagnose early gestation trophoblastic neoplasia. Okay, to diagnose early persistent trophoblastic disease. So follow-up is very important. So many times for your undergraduate exam, this question is there. Follow-up of a patient with the case of herediform mole. So follow-up is, can be divided into two parts. So follow-up you have to write how do you follow the patient with the HCG and what advice, that is the contraception. So both comes under follow-up. So many people will write follow-up is only HCG. No, follow-up you have to write both HCG and also you have what advice you give for contraception, that is follow-up of a patient of case of herediform mole. So follow-up. So when the patient comes to you with a herediform mole, so you diagnose by all the symptoms and investigations, you diagnose it as complete herediform mole. So now what you want to do? You will do a pre-anesthetic checkup and all the investigations and post-op for suction evacuation. So you have done a suction evacuation for the patient. Now what you want to do? You want to now the patient wants discharge. So you want to discharge without telling her anything, or you want to, before you are doing suction evacuation, you asked a basic beta HCG level. So that value, and after suction evacuation, you send another value of beta HCG level and you compare the both. So there should be decrease of beta HCG levels post suction evacuation. Then you ask her to do a weekly beta HCG level. So every week she has to give a beta HCG level, okay, until her 3 consecutive levels are normal. So until her 3 consecutive levels are normal. So whenever the patient after suction evacuation, for how much time the patient can have a first normal HCG level, that you plot all the weeks. Every week you plot, and on the y-axis you plot the values of beta HCG. So there should be a decrease. There should be a post-regression curve, post-regression molar curve. It is called as post, and you have to plot it. So you will see that around 6 to 8 weeks or 9 weeks, the beta HCG level should come to normal. So every week you do a beta HCG level and you repeat every week until 3 consecutive weeks. If they come, the values are normal, then you can go on for monthly. So every week till 3 consecutive samples are normal, then every month until they're normal for 6 consecutive months. So this is a follow-up of a case of herediform mole. Okay. So after doing this, again, you have to do a pelvic examination always when the patient comes to you. You have to do a pelvic examination. So see any vaginal metastasis and access uterine size, and you do have to do a chest X-ray after 3 months to rule out any lung metastasis. Okay. Next, contraception. So contraception is what contraception you want to advise the patient. This is very important. So you want to advise intrauterine contraceptive device? No. Why? Because when you advise intrauterine contraceptive device, what happens? It is nothing but a foreign body which you are going to introduce into the uterus. That can cause infection, that can cause sepsis, and that also can cause perforation of the uterus. So IUCD is not advised. Okay. IUCD is advised only after 1 year. Okay. Next, progesterone OD pills. You want to advise POPs? No. Why? Because they cause irregular bleeding. So when the patient comes with irregular bleeding, you don't know whether she's bleeding because of your POP pills or because of your any residual disease. You don't know. So don't advise POPs. Next is COCs, that is contraceptive pills. So contraception pills is best. So oral, that is oral contraception pills. Oral contraceptive pills are good. So once the beta HCG levels comes to normal or undetected, then you can start contraceptive pills, because the patient should not become pregnant. If you start a prophylactic chemotherapy, the patient should not become pregnant 1 year after the last chemotherapy dose. Why? Because it has got a teratogenic effect. So you have to counsel the patient. So follow-up is you have to tell how she has to follow by weekly beta HCG levels, and next you have to tell what contraception she has to use. Now Why this follow-up is important? So what you want to do in follow-up? Because to diagnose early, the persistent trophoblastic disease, any residual disease is there, you have to diagnose and you have to start a chemotherapy. For that, you have to do a follow-up. So when you want to start a chemotherapy, so when you are following, so there are criteria. Suppose you have done 4 consecutive weeks, you have done a beta HCG. Okay, for 4 consecutive weeks, every week you have done a beta HCG. If the HCG levels are not falling, they are just plateauing, then you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy because it is high risk and more chances of getting into a persistent trophoblastic. That is one criteria. Second criteria is if 3 consecutive weeks, so 3 weeks you have seen a beta HCG value. If there is 10% increase in this beta HCG values also, you have to start prophylactic chemotherapy, right? And there is histopathology. So when you're doing a DNC, you have done a DNC, then you wait for histopathological report. If the report comes to as choriocarcinoma, also you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy, right? Next, other thing is when there is persistent of beta HCG levels, even after 6 months of your suction period, is also you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy. So not all the cases you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy because I told you cases. So why you have to submit all the patients to chemotherapeutic side effects? So that is why, because rest of the patients, only 20% go into persistent trophoblastic disease, rest of the patients will undergo complete remissions and they'll be normal. So that is why during follow-up, if you find this 5 criteria, what I told you just before, you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy. So in case of high risk cases, you start a prophylactic chemotherapy. So chemotherapy, most important, what is the drug you want to use for chemotherapy? It is nothing but methotrexate. So it is nothing but methotrexate. Okay. So this is how you manage a hydatidiform mole. So next class I'll be talking about other gestation trophoblastic neoplasias, that is choriocarcinoma, placental cell trophoblastic tumor, these all things. So most common UG question for you is follow up. How do you follow up of a hydatidiform mole? And how do you differentiate between a complete mole and a partial mole? And what are the common symptoms? So common symptoms of a hydatidiform mole. Okay, so this is the tabular form you have to remember. Again, I'll just review what is important for you. So here, difference between complete and partial mole. You can partial mole is 69xxx. Okay, mixed abortion in case of a partial mole. Usually, common presentation of partial mole is mixed abortion, and common presentation is molar pregnancy. Usually, they're large for gestation, and theca luteins are more common in case of a complete mole. And initial HCG level is greater than 1 lakh in case of a complete mole. So medical complications. So what are the medical complications? Hyperemesis gravidae and thyroid storm, toxemia of the pregnancy. All these are medical complications which are usually common in case of a complete mole. And out of the suction evacuation cases, when you evacuate in case of complete mole, 50 to 20% will go into a persistent trophoblastic disease. About 5% go into a persistent trophoblastic disease in case of a partial mole. And here in histopathology, you have to remember 4 things. So 2 characteristic features in case of a complete mole, 2 characteristic features in case of a partial mole. So the 2 characteristic features in case of a complete mole is nothing but hydrophic swelling will be diffuse swelling of the chorionic villi in case of a complete mole. Okay, and there is diffuse trophoblastic proliferation, widespread trophoblastic proliferation in case of a complete mole. So these 2 characteristic features are complete mole. Next, the 2 characteristic features of a partial mole is nothing but scalloping of the chorionic villi and trophoblastic inclusion bodies. Okay, these 2 things. And embryo of fetus is absent in case of a complete mole. Is a typically complete mole, that you have to remember. And I told you this immunohistostaining, when you have a doubt whether it is a partial mole or a complete mole, or it's a normal pregnancy or a complete mole, then you have to do all this marker. So Immunohisto IHC marker is positive in case of a partial mole, missed abortion, inevitable abortion, ectopic. In case of it is negative in case of it. So this is what I told you. During follow-up, there is plateau of serum beta. So during a period of, this is not 3 weeks, first day, after 1 week 7 days, after 1 week 14 days, again 1 week 21. So these 4 weeks, consecutive 4 weeks, if you measure serum beta HCG levels, if there is a plateau, then you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy because it may go into gestation trophoblastic neoplasia. Second criteria is if the serum beta HCG level is greater than 10%. When you do a 3 consecutive measurements, that is day 1, 7, then also chemotherapy because it when go into gestation, more chances of the patient going into a gestation trophoblastic neoplasia. It remains detectable greater than 6 months. So when is a have normal HCG value after evacuation is about 6 to 8 weeks, the HCG should come to normal. But if you're detecting this HCG level greater than 6 months, you have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy. And proof, that is, what is the proof? Your suction evacuation curatings, there no. It is a proof that if the histology shows that it is a choriocarcinoma, we have to start a prophylactic chemotherapy. So histological criteria for chorio. So how do you diagnose histology, the choriocarcinoma? I told you in both case of both complete and partial mole, there is the villus structure is maintained, but the blood vessel is absent. But here in choriocarcinoma, the villus structure is not there. The villus structure is only absent. That is the histological criteria for choriocarcinoma, right? So these are the clinical features finished. Okay, in next class I'll tell you all this: gestation trophoblastic neoplasia, which includes choriocarcinoma, placental site trophoblastic tumor, epithelioid cell trophoblastic tumor, and chorioadenoma dextrosa. Chorioadenoma dextrosa is nothing but an invasive mode. Thank you. Call this.